Let's think about your tank's return pump for a second. Has it ever ran dry or nearly ran dry from sitting in a low water level? Has it ever been off or broken when you got home and you had no idea? Have you ever had a plumbing leak or a leaky external pump? Because the return pump's the heart of your reef that connects all of the life support between your sump and your tank, over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you how to use the Neptune Apex to solve return pump issues like these and more, ultimately helping you improve its performance and make it safer for your home and your reef pets. Hey guys, Randy here with BRStv's guide to mastering your Neptune Apex controller, where we show you how to use the Apex to improve your equipment's performance and avoid a ton of inevitable issues that all reefers face. Today's all about the return pump and how it will inevitably fail you one day, leaving you high and dry, or worse yet, with a ton of water all over your floor. If you strive to be prepared the moment a potential return pump issue happens, or you want to solve them before they even become an issue, then today's episode is for you, especially because I'm diving into the most common return pump issues that can and likely will happen to you at some point, and show you how a tool like the Neptune Apex accounts for the inevitable and puts you on the path to success. So in just a minute, I'm going to show you how to fix the single most important issue that you might face with your return pump. But before we get there, let's first talk about how easy it is to solve those instances when you feed your tank. And before your fish and corals get a chance to eat, much of the food has already gone down to the overflow and into this sump. It's difficult to watch our expensive foods and additives literally get sucked down the drain, so in order to help eliminate unnecessary food waste and related pollution by automatically turning our return pump off during feeding, we can use the Apex return pump task. By initially using your return pump task function to set up your pump, you actually knock out two birds with one stone. First, you rename your return pump outlet so it's easy to ID later for important alerts and notifications. And second, setting up your return pump to turn off automatically when you feed your tank to stop flushing food down the drain. To do this, choose the task icon from your dashboard that looks like a clipboard. Find the return pump task, choose your return pump's outlet, rename it something easy like return pump, then choose one of the 4 feed modes you want to use when feeding your tank and hit send. Your pump is now set up to keep more of your food in the tank when feeding by turning itself off during your desired feed mode, which runs for a default of 5 minutes. If you'd like, you can tailor that default 5-minute feed mode time to meet your own specific feeding needs, anywhere from 1 to 999 minutes, by choosing the miscellaneous setup wrench icon from your dashboard and adjusting your feed mode time in seconds. The next, and what I believe is the most important return pump issue your Neptune Apex can solve, is to know the exact moment your pump has stopped working altogether, because when your return pump is dead, your water's not getting filtered, it's not getting heated, it's not being fully circulated, all of which, if left long enough, could completely wipe out your tank. Using power monitoring, not only can you get emails, alerts, and notifications if your return pump fails to draw power at all, which substantially gives you an advantage to respond immediately, but power monitoring can also provide you with a window into your pump's performance, like it's still running but drawing less power than normal, which tells you that it might be clogged, obstructed, or that it's time to be cleaned. Maybe your gate valve or pump controller was bumped or changed without you knowing it, and now it's drawing more or less power than normal, or even in some instances, an increase in power consumption might tell you that your pump is running dry and spinning unobstructed. To turn on power monitoring for your return pump, whether it's AC, DC, or you're running more than one return pump for redundancy, find the power usage alarm task, select your return pump outlet you renamed earlier, pick a minimum and maximum wattage draw range for your alerts, and push the send button. If you're not sure what minimum or maximum ranges to choose, just go with the default ranges the Apex suggests, and after a few days of power consumption history, you can always come back and run the power usage alarm task again to get more refined ranges. And so already, just by adding your return pump to your Apex and using just those 2 task functions, we've already made it smarter and easier to use through automation. We've made it easier to troubleshoot and maintain through performance monitoring, and most importantly, we've made your return pump safer with alerts and notifications at the exact moment your tank's heartbeat stops functioning. So up next, let's explore other potential return issues that we can solve with the help of a few add-ons and accessories like the FMK fluid monitoring kit, leak detection kit, optical sensors, flow sensors, and probably the most intelligent accessory out there for any Neptune Apex, the Core 15 and Core 20. Okay, so if you're following me using that analogy that your return pump is like your tank's heart, then it's safe to say that the water flowing through is like the blood flowing through your tank's veins and arteries. Not only is it nice to know exactly how much or how fast that water is moving through your tank, but even more useful is the ability to know when it slows down or completely stops flowing. By monitoring your return pump's flow, you can add another layer of safety and redundancy through alerts when your return pump might not be operating normally and the flow might have changed. You can also be alerted when your primary drain or overflow is clogged and water starts flowing through the emergency drain, which isn't always obvious because your return pump likely isn't the cause here. You can monitor flow also, allowing you to assign an actual number to your ideal flow rate, where the balance between your sump and display remains steady and quiet. Monitoring flow allows you to set specific flow rates for gear like a UV sterilizer, which is imperative for the best performance, and flow can dynamically measure how your manifold's working, especially if you tweak one portion, causing changes to the other. With potential return pump and related plumbing issues like those out there, we can use tools like the FMK or individual flow sensors to solve them with a simple flow sensor task function. Whether you're using the full fluid monitoring kit or added an individual flow sensor to an existing FMM module, setting them up is a breeze. After your flow sensor is installed, find the flow sensor task, select your FMM, choose your flow sensor and flow sensor size from the drop-down menu, and then set a minimum and maximum flow rate range for your alerts. Before setting up the flow sensor alerts, I typically let the Apex gather a day or two worth of data after it's installed, which also allows me to make fine-tune adjustments and tweaks and lets the Apex recommend a tighter min and max flow rate range for your alerts. If you're using a flow sensor for gear like UV sterilizers with very specific flow rates, you can pull down the flow sensor graph from the unused tiles and use the flow rate in real time to make fine adjustments to dial it in first, then come back to the flow sensor task to set the ranges. For those using a flow sensor on your emergency drain as a backup in case something goes wrong with the primary drain, here's a tip for you. This notification could mean the difference between fixing a potential issue in time or water all over your floor. So just remember that the sensor should always read 0 gallons per hour unless water's flowing through it. So set your minimum flow rate higher than 0 and your maximum a little higher than that, and be sure to test that notification that it works before it becomes critical. So on that same subject of avoiding water all over the floor, I don't think I need to explain how crucial it is to either stop any leak before it happens or stop them as quickly as possible after they start. But leaks can happen beyond a leaky external return pump or leaky plumbing connections. It's important to keep in mind other potential leak points throughout our tanks, like the overflow, which can get clogged and start to spill over, or can also leak from a pump that's running too fast and the overflow can't keep up. So whether it's the plumbing, overflow, or return pump itself, monitoring for leaks and acting on them as quickly as possible is for sure the best practice to protecting your tank and protecting your home. This is where that LDK leak detection kit or individual leak detection sensors can save the day by not just alerting us about leaks when they happen, but actually turn equipment like the return pump off to help prevent further leaking, and setting up these protections is all covered in that LDK task function. Once your leak sensors are placed in those leak-prone areas, like under the overflow, near the plumbing, or under an external pump, you can find the LDK task, choose your FMM, identify your 2 leak sensors, and push send. Here's a little trick that I like to do immediately after adding any sensor to your LDK FMM or any other FMM module, and before using the LDK or flow sensor task. These sensors are so much easier to identify and use if you rename them first. So what I do is find the new sensor ports in the unused tiles, bring them down to the dashboard, and rename them something like I've done here with Leak 1, Leak 2, Optic 3, and Flow 4. So using that LDK task, we just solved getting a text, email, or alert if the leak sensors detect water, but in some cases, I would want to turn the return pump off if a leak was detected to stop the supply of water, in which case, all we need to do is choose the cog icon above your return pump outlet, add in a new line that says, if leak 1 closed, then off. Reminder, I renamed my sensors beforehand to Leak 1 and Leak 2, which made them even easier to add in here, and you can do the same for your sensor names, But now if there is water on the floor or where it's not supposed to be, you'll get an email alert, and at the same time, your return pump will automatically turn off. Alternatively, you could just rely on the notification to let you know that there is a leak and then use the Fusion app to manually toggle the pump on or off. In either case, the notification is actually the most important component to solving this issue. Sure, leak detection sensors can help safeguard your home and your tank from damage, but let's also talk about protecting your return pump investment itself. Regardless of the price tag that you paid for your return pump, you want to get the longest life out of it that you can, which extends beyond just regular maintenance and cleaning alone, but also applies to protecting your pump from potential issues like it running dry when your sump is low, not after it happens, but well before it has the chance to. An ETO failure or an empty freshwater reservoir is the most common culprit of a return pump running dry, which I can't count how many times it's happened to me, as I'm sure it happened to you. So because this is the most common, and because adding a low-level sump optical sensor is such a simple solution to a wide variety of potential issues, installing an optical sensor is something that I wouldn't skip on any tank setup. But I also have another great use for an optical sensor, and that is to add it inside your overflow to monitor the water level so that if it clogs, you can get a warning before it raises to your emergency drain or before it spills onto your floor. To add in an optical sensor pump protection, just mount your sensor underwater at the lowest point you want your sump to go, which for me is usually about 1 inch above the top of the return pump. Then add in a line on your return pump outlet that says, if Optic 3 open, then off. Again, your sensor name might be different, but now if your sump water level falls below the sensor, your return pump will turn off. And I would also add in a line to your email outlet that says, if Optic 3 open, then on, which will simultaneously send you an email, text, or alert that your pump is about to run dry and it's turned itself off. If you're going to install an optical sensor in your overflow to shut the pump off and alert you of a potential issue, you can simply add in a similar line to your return pump outlet that says, if Optic 3 closed, then off, and a line into your email outlet that reads, if Optic 3 closed, then on. The key here is to remember that the optical sensor is closed when underwater and open when dry, and it's best practice to test your alarms and actions after you're done to make sure that they function the way you intended. Now we come to the Neptune Core, and although it is a utility pump that you can use just like any other AC or DC return pump with all the same safeties, protections, and alerts that we just set up for other pumps, it's uniquely built for the Apex with more intelligent alarms, IQ level for minimum and maximum flow speeds, and a fully adjustable speed setting from 0 to 100%. So maybe that sounds like a bunch of marketing jargon for a regular return pump, but the additional functionality of the Core actually equates into some tangible benefits that aren't fully available with a standard AC or DC return pump tied to the Apex. The Core has the ability to not just tell you if it ever fails, like we added using power monitoring, but it can actually tell you what failed, or even help you diagnose symptoms of a failure before they happen. It does this through 5 additional alerts, like if the Core changes its RPMs outside of normal operation, over voltage messages indicating that a potential issue with the DC power supply, under voltage messages telling you that the power supply might be dying, current draw alarms if the Core is not drawing a normal current at a specific speed setting, which adds to that power draw alert, internal temperature sensors if the pump needs maintenance and is operating warmer than normal, and run dry errors to supplement the pump protections that we added with optical sensors and power monitoring. What that means is instead of only being able to use power monitoring alone for a diagnosis tool for a potential issue, using the Core 15 and Core 20, you gain access to more intelligent troubleshooting, oftentimes well before the pump actually breaks, and accessing them is automatic just by hooking your Core pump to your Apex and running the Core task function. The Core task will walk you through the setup where you first set the Core IQ level, which sets a maximum flow rate, meaning no matter what, your Core won't ramp up beyond your set speed, which protects your pump, plumbing, and tank from an accidental bump or change to the driver. Then you'll set your minimum flow rate specifically for feed modes, where instead of turning the pump completely off and having water and food drain back into the sump, the Core will maintain just enough water flow to keep the return lines charged and equalize the sump and display. Once your minimum and maximum flow rates are set, the core task will set up your feed mode, similar to what we did initially, but additionally, in the next steps, you can automatically choose an outlet like your protein skimmer to turn off when the core is off or even running slower than normal, as well as automatically enable email alerts if the core encounters one of those 5 additional faults or errors. On top of those additional features, what I really like about adding a core to the Apex is the core performance display on your dashboard that provides you with a visual readout of how the pump's performing in real time. Having additional insights beyond power off and power off alone from one of the simplest components of my tank's gear not only triggers that inner gear junkie, but at the same time brings an added sense that my investment in my tank is safeguarded as possibly as I can make it, just like the protections, redundancies, and a sweet little protein skimmer hack I share in this Master Your Apex video right over here. The tips, tricks, and cool hacks we uncover about the Apex's capabilities continually surprise me, and with over 30 new episodes filling up this playlist over here, I guarantee that you will find some surprises yourself.